The Return of Xander Cage is the third film in the XXX franchise. This is a trilogy now. We have 3 of these movies, the first one being with Vin Diesel and the second one being with Luke, what's-his-face? The second one being with Ice Cube, and now this third one is Vin Diesel coming back. And this movie's basically about how Vin Diesel basically comes back to the XXX organization because he was presumed dead, but now he's back, and he and some other people from XXX basically have to get revenge on this whole gang because they did something bad to the XXX team, basically. That's the best way I can describe this movie. So guys, what's January without a really crappy action movie to come out? I mean, this movie looked terrible from the trailers. I didn't know anything about the movie, and I wasn't even planning on seeing it until my friend WWE Fan 0599 and my friend 22 Tiger Dude both asked me to watch the first film with them, and I watched the first film with them over Skype, and this face right here is my reaction. As you can see, it was on a Skype chat, and yeah. And from this picture came this very cool meme that my buddy Garrison Newkirk made. It's the best thing ever, so I couldn't not show it. Gary, I love you, man. The first XXX movie with Vin Diesel is a terrible movie, but at least that movie was self-aware. At least it was fun at points. At least the action wasn't filmed like a shaky cam mess. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I didn't even bother with the second film because Vin Diesel isn't even in it. It's just about Ice Cube. I heard you didn't even need to watch that to get this movie, and yeah, you don't even need to watch that movie. It's basically pointless, and I never watched it, and I watched this movie. And to no surprise, this movie is terrible. I mean, what did you expect from an XXX movie? It's a terrible movie, and this movie is even worse than the first movie. Like I said, I haven't seen the second movie, but this is for sure a lot worse than that original film. This film is terrible, and I'm gonna go through the reasons why. As far as pros go, the action isn't a shaky, incoherent mess. At least you can tell what's going on screen. At least the action isn't filmed horribly, even if the action is way over the top and crazy and impossible. And Donnie Yen is good at choreographing his stunts. That's basically the only pros I get with this movie. Now let's go to the negatives. Vin Diesel was a very fun presence in the first movie. Was his character anything great? Was his acting anything great? No, not really, but his character was fun, I guess. But in this movie, he's basically just a complete jerk. There's literally a scene in this movie where he's on a plane and he doesn't want to work with these gangs of guys, so he dumps them out of the plane. Basically, just dumps this entire gang out of the plane. And basically any scene where there's an attractive looking woman in this same room or area as Vin Diesel, he's trying to get into their pants. And in this movie, he basically just comes off as a jerk the entire movie. He's basically a complete a-hole. In the first movie, he was kind of sort of likable, but in this movie, any of the likability that he had is completely out the window. And speaking of unlikable characters, there's a really big character in this movie named Nina Dobrev. I don't know anything about this actress, but in this movie, she was so bad. I mean, she is basically the Jar Jar Binks of this movie, even though this movie is way worse than Phantom Menace. She is so annoying. She's basically a character that can't do anything right, and she's a huge fan of Xander Cage. She's like in love with him, she's his biggest fan, but she can't really do anything right, and she's just really annoying and stupid. And there's even one scene in this movie where she just drops a gun on the ground, and it fires on the ground and kills a bunch of enemies in front of her. It just goes like on the ground and just kills them. Why did I see this movie? Toni Collette in this movie, phoning it in. Samuel L. Jackson in this movie, who's only in it for like a little bit, is also phoning it in. Every actor in this movie is phoning it in. Even Donnie Yen is phoning in his acting. I liked him a lot in Rogue One, but he is phoning it in here. Even though he is pretty good choreographing the action scenes, that's definitely one of the pros I can say with this movie, is that he was a pretty good action star, I guess, but still his acting was kind of phoned in. See, the thing with the first XXX movie is that that movie was aware of itself. It was aware that it was a stupid, dumb movie. It was probably aware that it was a bad movie too. They weren't trying to make it anything great. Yeah, the story was super convoluted in that movie, but still, it was at least aware of what it was. A stupid, dumb, fun action movie, and it's not a good movie at all, but at least it was self-aware. This movie is not self-aware at all. I will say that this movie is a lot easier to follow than the original XXX movie, because the original XX movie is all over the place. This movie is a little bit easier to follow, but still, this movie is still super convoluted, and the thing that this movie had that the other movie didn't was that it was so boring! This movie tried to take itself so seriously so many times. You can tell that the people directing and writing this movie wanted to make this a suspenseful action thrill ride, and that's not what the XX movie should be. I mean, I can't believe I'm comparing this to the first XX movie, and that wasn't even good to begin with. It just did a few things better than this movie. The entirety of this movie is trying to be a serious, suspenseful action movie, and it just does not work because you don't care about any of the characters in this entire film. None of the characters are good. Even Vin Diesel is phoning it in this movie. There's also a way overabundance of characters in this movie. Like, so much characters to the point where I couldn't keep track of any of them. I was like, who the heck are you? Who the heck are you? Who the heck are you? There's so many. Even Ice Cube shows up in this movie for like 4 minutes. There's so many characters in this movie, and they do have the dumb, fun action scenes in this movie, but there actually aren't that many. There's not that many dumb, fun action scenes in this movie. At least the first XXX had so many dumb action scenes, it was just action scenes all over the place. This movie doesn't even have that many. A lot of it is just trying to be dramatic and being bad, because the writing in this movie does not support a dramatic story. The writing in this movie is so cringy, it's so bad, it's so cheesy, the dialogue is so bad, and anything that could have made this movie a guilty pleasure, like the first one might be for some people, is just stripped away from it. Sure, yeah, when the dumb fun action scenes come, they come. They are just as dumb as in the first movie. I mean, there's literally a scene where they motorcycle on water. I'm not even kidding you, that is a scene in this movie. And there's a scene where this person is like sniping, about to hit Vin Diesel's head, but then he's like, oh, I'll just make this circle with my hand, and then the bullet will go right through it. And there's scenes where him and Donnie Yen are getting hit by cars, and they don't have a scratch on them. Yes, it's that type of movie. My problem is that the action scenes aren't even there. Things that could have made this a little bit better than it was aren't even there in this movie. A little bit easier to follow than the first XXX, but still, there's so many characters that are impossible to keep track of. There's no characters that are memorable. All the female characters in this movie are super weak, especially Nina Dobrev's character. Everything in this movie is terrible. There's not really much you can say about an XXX movie, even though the first film was much better than this one, and it's still bad. I'm gonna give XXX The Return of Xander Cage a D-. Just because the action scenes weren't filmed like a choppy, shaky, incoherent mess, and Donnie Yen is alright at choreographing stuff. That's it. If you have seen Xander Cage, be sure to comment your thoughts on it, I guess. I mean, I'm actually asking you to comment your thoughts on a Xander Cage movie. Be sure to like this video, be sure to comment, be sure to subscribe, be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will probably have a spoiler review of Split coming out pretty soon. I haven't done a spoiler review ever before, but with Split, I need to talk about that ending, so I'm probably going to do a spoiler review for that pretty soon, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.